As the Palestinian presidency warned against the serious repercussions of Israel's attack on the Palestinian population, the Israeli army is pursuing its bombing of the enclave, killing and wounding scores of people. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Hattaf, is taking part in Manama, Bahrain, in the preparatory meeting of the 33rd Summit meeting of the Arab League, due to open in 2 days' time. Jamal Salmani has more.
The meeting will discuss the implementation of the decision taken during the previous Arab Summit meeting held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The meeting focused on the examining of the issues set on the summit's agenda, including the Palestinian issue and other questions related to the Arab national security. Questions related to political, diplomatic, economic, social and cultural dimensions of the Arab joint action are also examined by the Arab Ministerial Council. In this connection, the Ministerial Council held the role particularly played by Algeria since it's joined the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member in favor of the Palestinian issue, notably the UN full membership requested by the Palestinians. It is worth noting that the diplomacy chief held discussions outside the Arab Council meeting with several Arab foreign ministers, including his Mauritanian counterpart, Mohammed Salem Ould Marzouk, devoted to the examining of the latest developments in the Arab and African regions. He also had discussions with the Yemeni Foreign Minister, Mohsen al-Zandani, on the situation prevailing in Yemen.
The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Brahim Boghali, has received in Algiers the Secretary General of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, Fayez El-Shawabka. In a statement to the press, Mr. El-Shawabka said that the meeting dealt with the ongoing preparation for the next Union's conference to be held in Algeria later this month.
We inspected all the infrastructures where the upcoming meeting of the Arab Interparliamentarian Union is to be held, including the conferences center that can host events that are more important than this one. In today's meeting that was attended by the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, we evoked the main points on the conference's agenda and the ones that can be tackled. We expect a high number of Arab countries and observers to participate in the conference scheduled in Algeria. The conference will be a success, particularly in the light of the difficult circumstances that the world is going through.
Evoking the situation prevailing in Palestine, Mr. El-Shawabka has held Algeria's position against the methodical genocide perpetrated by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinians, including children and women.
Historically, Algeria is one of the biggest supporters of the Palestinian cause. Algeria's support is undeniable, and it has always been the first in supporting the Palestinian cause. As a proof, the recent attempt to admit Palestine as a permanent, full member of the UN, I think Algeria is constantly working in favor of the Arab causes in general and the Palestinian one in particular.
The Arab Interparliamentary Union has said that the admission of Palestine as a full member state of the United Nations is a legitimate legal and humanitarian right, stressing that the strengthening of Palestine's status within the international organization is likely to promote stability and peace. A parliamentary delegation bringing together representatives of the National People's Assembly and the Council of the Nation will take part as from tomorrow, Tuesday, in the 18th session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, due to open tomorrow in Braga, Portugal. The details with Jamal Salmani.
In this respect, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Saleh Gujil, presided over a coordination meeting during which he highlighted the importance of the parliamentary diplomacy and the significant role it could play within the international political system. During the meeting, he advocated the resort to mechanisms to defend Algeria's positions vis-à-vis the different regional and international issues, as well as to the approaches it adopted to face up to the security, economic and political challenges the Mediterranean region is confronted to, in line with the principles of the country's diplomacy implemented under President Tebboun's leadership. The Senate Speaker hailed Algeria's strategic position in the Mediterranean basin and urged the delegation's members to contribute to enshrining the debate by shedding light on the Palestinian cause and the decolonization issues in the region.
The Algerian delegation taking part in Geneva in a conference aimed at agreeing on an international legal instrument on the intellectual property related to genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge has stressed the confiscation of the Palestinian people's resources and the systematic destruction of their tangible and intangible heritage was a result of Israelis' illegal practices. The delegation said the holding of the conference was the result of constant efforts by its member states to put in place a more inclusive and flexible intellectual property system that will contribute to protecting the forms of creativity and innovation that depend directly and indirectly on genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge. During his speech, a representative of Algeria to the UN office in Geneva, Ambassador Rachid Bledhen, has recalled that the irreversible damage caused to the Palestinian population because of the illegal practices of the Israeli occupation.
Mr. President, please allow me to draw the attention of the participants at what is happening to the Palestinian people, including the confiscation of its resources and the systematic destruction of its tangible and intangible heritage due to the illegal practices of the Zionist occupier of Palestine.
That was the representative of Algeria to the UN office in Geneva, Ambassador Rachid Bledhen. The Secretary-General of Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, Mohamed Hamel, is now on a 2-day working visit to Algeria. During the visit, Mr. Hamel will meet the Minister of Energy and Mines and other officials. The visit is part of the strengthening of the joint efforts between Algeria and the GECF in the scientific and innovation research fields. On the occasion, a plan and a short, medium and long-term action program of the Gas Research Institute, inaugurated last February, will be launched by the Gas Research Institute. Algeria is taking part in the proceeding of the 4th session of the Specialized Technical Committee of the African Union for Trade, Tourism, Industry and Mineral Resources, now taking place in Equatorial Guinea's capital, Malabo. Algeria's high-level delegation is led by the head of the Office of the Minister of Trade and Export Promotion, Souheila Abdelhaj, with representative of the Industry Ministry, the Tourism Ministry, and the Ministry of the Knowledge, Economy, Startups and Micro-Enterprises. Continental themes relating to trade, industry, tourism and mineral, including e-commerce, special economic zones and African startups, will be discussed at the meeting. As the Palestinian presidency warned against the serious repercussions of Israel's attacks on the Palestinian population, the Israeli army pursued its funding of the enclave, killing and wounding scores of people. Palestinian sources said over 80 people were killed and more than 230 others wounded in the Israeli bombardments, which mainly hit the western area of Rafah in the southern part of Gaza. Violent fighting has been taking place in the northern part of Gaza at a time when the Israeli authorities ordered the population to evacuate the western area of Rafah ahead of operations they intend to launch in the town's nearing areas. The UN affirmed that 450 million people have been forced to flee those sectors of Rafah relentlessly bombarded by the Israeli army. Meanwhile, the Palestinian presidency spokesman Nabil Abu Rodeina warned that an Israeli assault on Rafah would be a major mistake, while blaming the responsibility on the US administration, whom he stressed was the only one to stop such an attack. The United Nations has called to privilege the diplomatic path in order to reach a solution to the political conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Deputy Executive Director, Humanitarian Action and Supply Operations for UNICEF, Mr. Ted Shaban, stressed that the only way to reduce the suffering in the DRC is to increase the efforts of the regional actors and the international community to negotiate a political solution to the conflict, including the Luanda process, the Nairobi dialogue, and other diplomatic efforts. Following a visit in eastern DRC, Mr. Shaban highlighted that in the eastern part of the country, the conflict reached new heights, displacing millions of people and creating the worst humanitarian crisis in the country since 2003. He reported the deterioration of the security situation in the provinces of North and South Kivu and Ituri, and is having a significant impact on the delivery of humanitarian aid, adding that the intensification of the fighting in the recent months worsened the already precarious situation of the children and families in the camps. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has expressed concern following the resumption of clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Paramilitary Forces in the western city of El Fasher in the North Darfur state. His concern was about a report on the use of heavy weapons in densely populated areas, causing the death of tens of people, marital displacement, and destroying civilian infrastructures. The Secretary-General said that he was particularly worried about the fate of the inhabitants of the capital of the state of North Darfur, including the 800,000 displaced people who are already facing the threat of famine and the consequences of more than a year of war, calling again for an immediate ceasefire and an unimpeded humanitarian access. The Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for Yemen, Hans Grundberg, has stressed that a peaceful and just solution to the crisis in Yemen was still possible, despite the challenges, highlighting that the parties to the conflict could from now on take concrete and decisive measures to reach a long-term peace in the country. Addressing the Security Council via the video conference, Mr. Grundberg stressed that he had pursued his contacts with the parties to the conflict to make progress on the UN roadmap, to try and find ways to stop the escalation, to strengthen confidence, to pave the way for a ceasefire, and for the resumption of a comprehensive political process. To break from its dependency on hydrocarbons, Algeria has decided to diversify its economy and tap into the rich resources it has, foremost of which are the mining resources. Let's find out more in this special program by our colleague Mohamed Khatel.
With deposits of gold, zinc, copper, and phosphate, Algeria has significant mineral resources. Many of them have been left unexploited, but now the country is counting on them to diversify its economy. To achieve its industrial ambitions, Algeria has relaunched several large mining projects. The one at Garaj Bilat in the desert, among the most pivotal ones. The desert landscape is covered by a blackish layer. It's the surface of one of the largest iron ore deposits in the world. Billions of tons of iron ore have been laying dormant since their discovery in 1952. Finally, after years of studies, the site was opened up this summer. In the long term, the objective is to extract tens of millions of tons per year, including the 12 million tons needed by the Algerian steel industry. In addition, the Tala Hamza Wada Mizur zinc and lead project in the province of Bijaya, which has one of the largest reserves in the world in this area, is part of the structural and promising mining projects like the projects of integrated phosphate in the east of the country and the Garaj Bilat mine. Reserves are estimated at 34 million tons of zinc. This deposit is capable initially of producing concentrated ore in proportions that can reach 169,000 tons of zinc and 30,000 tons of lead annually, with additional possibility of creating 700 direct jobs and 4,000 indirect jobs. Ultimately, there is talk of producing 250,000 tons of zinc. The mine will then be able to occupy the 5th place in the world. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, insisted during a meeting of the Council of Ministers on the need to continue advancing the structuring of mining projects and respecting the completion deadlines. The President of the Republic called for all measures to be taken in order to allow these strategic and structuring projects to advance and respect the completion deadlines. He also ordered the government to coordinate and intensify efforts through diligent monitoring of the projects and solve all the difficulties they face.
اليوم لما نتكلم على المناجم هذه كانت موجودة منذ الاستقلال وما تطرقنا لهاش. يعني باقيين يعني شادين إلا في البترول والغاز، وإحنا عندنا كل المناجم ممكن تواجدها موجودة عندنا، ولها قيمة تكاد تساوي قيمة المحروقات. تكلم على كراج بيلت، ثاني أو ثالث احتياط منجمي للحديد في العالم، وإحنا نستورد الحديد، نستورد المادة الخامة، لأن المنجم الحالي جبل عنق ما يكفيش لأن تطورت الأمور. أصبحنا اليوم نصدر، الإنتاج تاعنا كان يدور حول 1,000,000، طلع ل 2,000,000. اليوم رانا ما يقارب 5 ملايين طن إنتاج. نعطي الأرقام هذه يعني دليل قاطع أن العزيمة والروح الوطنية العالية تعوض كل شيء، تعوض المال وتعوض الحديد نتاعنا. راه يمشي للولايات المتحدة، راه يمشي لأوروبا، راه يمشي لإفريقيا. أين كنا وأين أصبحنا؟
During the ceremony celebrating the 58th anniversary of the nationalization of mines and the 57th anniversary of the creation of the National Company for Mining Research and Exploitation, SONAREM, held at the Abdel Taif Al Conference Center in Algiers, under the patronage of Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi, in the presence of several members of the government, the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohammed Arqab, insisted on the importance of boosting the mining sector and establishing partnerships with international companies specialized in this field.
To
boost the sector, an important strategy has been implemented consisting of defining the main priorities, foremost of which the review of the legal framework and the